Hi everyone, Jacqueline Kuhn here with JacquelineKuhn.com powered by angels. And today we are talking about Archangel Zadkiel and Gabriel with the Uranus transit into Gemini. This transit actually happened a couple of days ago. I am actually recording this on the 27th of April, and the transit began on the 25th. So it's a slow transit and slow in progress. Just going to cover a few things, and then at the end, I have an offer for a workshop on this that I am planning next month. So this transit, Uranus and Gemini, um, begins an 84-year cycle. So the last time Uranus, you know, was in Gemini was, 84 years ago. Um, it's a slow-moving planet. It doesn't happen very often, right? Uranus itself moves every, 15, 20 years, something like that. So when it does move, when a planet like Uranus or when a planet like Pluto, Neptune, when those big outer planets move, it's big, it's disruptive, it is major energy, but again, it's slow. So we've been in its shadow for a couple of weeks. It is now basically 0 degrees Gemini, and it slowly makes its way through Gemini. So, unlike when Mercury or Mars or Venus moves, they move in and out of planets in weeks. This is years. So this is not something you need to freak out about, or you know the sky is, kind of the sky is falling. It's nothing like that. But it is something to think about, to consider, and to reflect on, because Uranus represents revolution, disruption, in a way, innovation, and Gemini is communication and information and media. So disruption in information systems and alliances and technologies is really what we can expect during this cycle, particularly if you look back historically at what happened the very last time Uranus was in Gemini. This was, 1941 to 1949-ish. And that was a time of incredible change for the world. World War II escalated into a global conflict, right? Multiple nations were involved. Massive intelligence breakthroughs, the code breaking, the radio dominance. The first computer was actually built to break codes during that time. If you can believe it, 1943, the first computer was created, and that was to break the codes of the Germans so that our allies could understand what they were about to do and try to stop that war, right? The United Nations was formed. Talk about the first time actual global conversations were had, 1945. And it was also the beginning of the Cold War. And this was when, we were looking at making decisions and ideologies based on information and conflict based on information. And so every time Uranus enters Gemini, communication, conflict structures reorganize. We are not going to repeat history. I'm not saying that these things are going to happen again, but the kinds of patterns that happen will. This is even evident in the other times when this transit occurred. And there's an astrologer who has a podcast, Scott Tajirian, that has in his podcast, he outlines all of the times when Uranus was in Gemini and how it completely transformed the world. Some key times were back when the Civil War in the US, the freedom of the slaves. Prior to that, I think it was like a Spanish War or something. I really encourage you to listen to his, and I will put a link in the comments to his podcast, because he goes into depth of what has happened in the past so that we can understand perhaps some of the things that we may be seeing in the future. Again, I'm not saying this to scare you or to alarm you, but just that there will be revolutions. There will be big changes on a global nature. This isn't like, just a tiny little blip on the radar. This is big energy. And how it impacts you is going to be very different from everybody else. But what we can expect to see is an even more rapid evolution and revolution in technology, the acceleration of AI. What does that mean to all of us? More access to quantum computing and a more understanding of quantum physics and how it may manifest itself in the world. And because of these new technologies, debates about truth and digital identity and censorship, we've even seen some of that already. And there are some countries in the world today that are censoring social media. So we're going to see a lot more debate about it as technology becomes so ubiquitous, and people will be challenging all of these concepts. Transportation and mobility breakthroughs. You can probably expect innovation in autonomous vehicles, right? More innovation around drones, air mobility, maybe that air car will finally happen, and more space travel. And we just had an incredible space travel journey. More of that, and will be happening and available, and learning more about the universe around us through that. You can expect some geopolitical realignments. In the past, the cycles did correlate with ideological shifts and wars, where Uranus and Gemini coincide with our involvement in conflicts. We can see that going on right now. But the other side of it, and I don't want you to think, oh my God, this means we're going to war. What it really could mean is an alliance restructuring, and are involved in conflicts through new uses of technology, right? Like drone attacks, and being able to have air defense, right? More, and better air defense. So I don't want you to think that Uranus and Gemini means equals we are going to war. I know there are some astrologers out there that are talking like that. I don't necessarily believe that that's what this means. I mean that this is a total revolution in what we think about conflict, how we think about global conflict, and a restructuring of alliances. Alliances that were almost unthinkable may happen, right? This is the kind of energy where the previously thought of as unthinkable or undoable can happen in these areas. So don't be surprised that if you start hearing about things and you're like, wow, I never thought that was going to even be possible. And then, learning and education and cognitive transformation, different ways of learning, neurodiversity-centered systems, different ways of thinking, different ways that our brains work, AI-supported education. This is, communication is a big piece of Gemini. Uranus is disruption. So how do we communicate the way we learn? How do we structure the way we learn, right? But that is all up for breakthroughs, really, with Uranus in Gemini over this, 6-year period, I guess, 26 to 32, over the 6-year period. And it just began. So again, this isn't like, oh my God, tomorrow you're going to see something. This is patterns that you may begin to see. Now, the archangels for this to step in and help you have some peace and clarity are Zadkiel and Gabriel. No surprise. Zadkiel, the the angel for Gemini, and Gabriel, our communication archangel. And I have a couple of prayers here to both to help you really step into the next chapter of your soul purpose as it gets impacted by this transit, right? Think differently, communicate authentically. So Zadkiel is the compassion, perspective, and mental peace, and Gabriel for clarity and communication and truth. So these are some prayers to use for having both of them as we work through this. But the most important thing with these next 6 years is how it's going to impact you. You know, because this is slow moving and just beginning, this is not a time to rush into something. Rather, now is the time to reflect on how this may impact you specifically and individually. There are a couple of really key things to think about. Where do you have Gemini in your birth chart? Because whatever house that's in, if it's anywhere, is where this transit's going to impact greatest. If you have any natal planets in Gemini, this will get activated directly. And then if you have any of these mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sag, Pisces, you're going to feel this more intently. And so what I thought, instead of having another long drawn out video, I am going to create an online workshop so that you can better understand how this fully impacts you. The QR code is there. I'm also going to put a link in the comments. This is going to be a workshop where you will get a workbook. We're going to answer these questions. We're going to do reflections. We're going to create some plans for how you might be seeing this show up today, and even some action plans for as this might unfold as the next 6 years go on. This is a name your price webinar. You'll see that I think it's a minimum of $1. It's about a $25 or $30 value, but I want everybody to be able to afford this workshop. So it's a name your price. Because I want to work with you. This is 90 minutes. This isn't something that is going to be quick and fast. So take a look, scan that to register for it. And when you register, you will get that workbook for yourself. So sit back, time for some reflection. No reaction is needed right now. And in a couple of weeks, we can sit down together and work through how this will specifically impact you. Should you have any questions, of course, you can reach me. You can comment in the video, go to my website and, enter some notes, email me directly. There are many ways to get in touch with me, but I hope to see you in a couple of weeks at this workshop where we can get down to the specifics on how this transit will impact you and just put some action plans together, because every new transit is an opportunity. We always want to take advantage of these opportunities as the energy change for ourselves to grow while we are fulfilling our soul's purpose during our time on this earth. Until we talk again, be blessed. Goodbye for now.